I built my dream PC, but that costs around $3,500. Today I want to do something a little more affordable and then also possibly sell it. Hi, I'm Justin from Random Tech Videos, and before we get into this video, please consider subscribing to this channel and turning on notifications, and also please consider leaving a like on this video if you think you might enjoy it. And sorry for the budget wall decorations. Anyway, today I'm doing a $1,300 budget build with an RTX 3060 Ti and a Ryzen 5 5600X. The goal is to sell it online for around $1,800 because I literally camped out for like 16 hours in front of Best Buy to get this 3060 Ti, so I deserve some kind of compensation. But that's besides the point. Today I'm going to be building in this Cougar case. I'm boring, I know, enough talking, let's just get building. Here's my motherboard. This is a Asus TUF Gaming B550 Plus. You can see what it is right here. So taking out the motherboard, I do not want to forget the brace that we need to hammer into the back of the computer. Do you get the reference? Leave it in the comments if you do. The motherboard is right here, as you can see. I guess the first thing we can do is install the SSD. It doesn't really matter what order you put stuff in the motherboard because it doesn't interfere with anything else. So I can put the SSD in first if I want. Now that my M.2 SSD is installed, I'll now install the RAM. I went with XPG Gamix D20 3200 MHz 16 GB kit 8x8. And I believe it's CAS latency 16. This is something that some people have made mistakes with, so I need to be careful to put this in the right slot. So I will put it in slot A1 and slot B1. Time to put the CPU in. This Ryzen 5 5600X is nice because it includes a cooler. The 5600X, oh, it just fell out right there. 5600X should be able to be cooled by the stock cooler. Right now I'm about to slot in the CPU. This isn't hard at all. And then just lock it in place. Time to install the cooler. And it includes thermal paste pre-applied. But you know the rule, when you have thermal paste pre-applied, you always have to put on a little extra, right? Of course not. I'm joking. So if I put it on like this, the cable's just going to be hanging out like here. But if I put it on to the left like this, then the cable can kind of be hidden. I have to put this carefully and evenly over the CPU. And now I'll screw it down with this special screwdriver designed exactly for this kind of stuff. So I believe we now can move on to the case. The first thing I want to do in the case is hammer in the brace. I mean, put on the I/O shield. Unfortunately, this case is so cheap that it doesn't have captive screws. I probably will not build in this case again. Also, the PCIe slot covers are the type where you knock them out. Once they're out, they're never going back in. I really prefer the motherboards that have an integrated I/O shield. The main reason why I went with this case is it did not have a front glass panel but a mesh airflow and 4 RGB fans. Because RGB is what sells gaming PCs, it's sad but true. Okay, it looks like I'm going to need to install additional standoffs. I installed the rest of the standoffs and now I'm going to put the motherboard back in and hopefully I use the right screws. I'm having kind of an issue here because when I put the motherboard in place, the BIOS flashback button keeps getting forced down. I'm going to have to do some troubleshooting off camera. I'll get back to you, I guess, once I've installed the motherboard. Okay, so I'll give you a quick update on what happened. I did install the motherboard finally, by the way. Basically what happened is that the BIOS flashback button, due to how warped this case is, due to it being made of cheap materials and so flexible, that this BIOS flashback button was being pushed down constantly by the I/O shield. That would not be good because then you probably couldn't boot because it'd keep trying to flash the BIOS even though it couldn't. That's what happens when you get a cheap case. This case costs about like $50. Don't get cases that are this cheap. It's just not worth it. So I think now that I have the motherboard installed, the next step is to wire up all the pre-wired stuff to the motherboard. It's now time to install the hard drive. Trust me, I'm never going with this case again. Getting those cables to where they should go was so hard. This is a 2 terabyte Seagate Barracuda hard drive. And now, just enjoy as I struggle to open the packaging for 10 minutes straight. I'm kidding. I'll cut to when I finally get it open. So to install the hard drive, I assume the first thing I have to do is take the hard drive cage out. Oh, and by the way, I don't know how well you can see this on camera, but the bottom fan here is totally suffocated by this hard drive bay. It's going to be okay, hopefully, because it's only a 3060 Ti, but that's not good design. Okay, now I can reinstall the hard drive cage by just putting it back in here somehow. I just sort of had to jam it in there. It doesn't even fit in nicely. I literally just have to force it in. Time to move on to the power supply. I went with a 550 watt bronze by EVGA because that should be enough for this build. Yeah, I know you're thinking, well, the 3060 Ti doesn't need 600. Given that the components here, PC parts, they only need around like 400 watts, so this should be plenty. Yeah, I take down the power supply. It's at least a reputable one, although less efficient. If I do future builds to sell, I'll get a better power supply, but this should be good enough. I'm just trying to jam all these cables in here, but then at the same time I had to do that with my own PC. As you can see, it's kind of hard to install a power supply when you're the only person doing it because you have to hold up the power supply while putting in the screws. It's just not the easiest thing to do a power supply install. So now there's only one more major component to install, and you get to see it unboxed right in front of you. Yes, I have it, the RTX 3060 Ti that I camped all night and the previous day at Best Buy to obtain for this very purpose of doing a build to entertain you and to sell. And I'm about to install it. Okay, so I need to remove these two PCIe slot covers. If I remove the wrong ones, well, they're never coming back. So it's the second one and then the third one. And I just had a camera die. One moment. So before I was interrupted by the camera's battery dying, I had said that I had to knock out these two PCIe cover slots. I'm slotting it in right now. And it's in. As many of you who might build PCs probably already know, it's now time for the post test. Well, that's a good sign. The aRGB behind the motherboard has come on, so let me press the power button and hopefully this doesn't explode. Okay, the hard drive's spinning, the fans are spinning. Okay, it's doing the checks. I'll connect the display and see if we can get anything displayed. Okay, good, we have display. Everything's working, so it's time for cable management. Okay, I know that by no means is this cable management here perfect, but this case is not the easiest to work with, so I did my best, and there are also a lot of wires due to the fan hub. So I did my best to cable manage, and just hopefully I can force this down over all the cables. Okay, yeah, it goes on. But the real thing about the cable management here, the horrible thing about it is this. This is Nvidia's horrible adapter. It's not long enough so that it can hide in the power supply basement, and it's not short enough that it can just be right here. And now for the part you've all been waiting for. After this, I will, I guess, set it up and get back to you once it's done. But first, I always love doing that. So as you can see, the PC is finally up and running here. I had to go through so much trouble. This PC is fine, but Windows is just so messed up. Okay, I don't want to get into too much detail here, but let me explain a little bit. So basically I installed Windows once, and then it started to auto-install conflicting drivers at the same time, and so I was blue screening every 5 seconds, and then eventually couldn't boot. I reinstalled Windows, and then I realized that it had been partitioned as MBR instead of GPT, and if it's MBR, it won't support Windows 11. So then I had to reinstall Windows and partition it to GPT, and then I realized that it had installed the boot partition on the hard drive instead of the SSD, so then I had to redo that to make it install to the SSD by unplugging the hard drive. And then after that, what happened is I got Windows running stably, but I couldn't update because an Nvidia driver that was older than the one I had installed over the newer driver, and so it just became a mess, and then a cumulative update wouldn't install. So finally I reinstalled Windows again, and I made sure that Windows could not connect to the internet until I manually installed the Nvidia display driver. And once I did that, I was able to get all the updates and get everything working, and I did Cinebench and Firmark simultaneous runs to stress test this to make sure it can handle full load. Windows. You really got on my nerves, Windows. But anyway, it's running stably now, and this is why I think I'm justified selling it for $1,800, because I actually put a lot of effort into this build. The RGB on this case is addressable RGB plugged into a 3-pin RGB header on the motherboard, so they can control it from the software on the PC, or they can press this button here to manually use some preset modes. But anyway, I think that's all I need to say about this PC. But with that out of the way, I think you know what time it is. Time for some cinematics. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing to this channel and also like the video if you enjoyed, because these videos with all the multiple camera angles take a lot of effort to edit, so I'd appreciate a like. And I know it's a bit late in the video to say this, but if you want to check out any of the parts I used for this PC, they're all linked in the video description, although I would not recommend buying this case for your own build because it's on the cheaper side. And until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.